All right, everybody, welcome back. Socially Connected 360, number 20 is in the house. We're excited about our next guest. It couldn't come at a better time. I saw her hashtag. It said hashtag Section 8 to CEO, and it caught my attention. I knew I had to talk to her. Cheyene, CEO, entrepreneur, ready to rock, starting now.
This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. Socially Connected 360 in the house with number 20. Like I said in the promo, I'm excited about this because I saw this hashtag of this young lady, CEO, entrepreneur, hashtag Section 8 to CEO, and it grabbed my attention. I said, I got to talk to her. We got to connect her with all of you. Her name is Cheyene. Chelsea, how you doing? How's everything going?
I'm doing amazing. Amazing. How about you?
I'm doing good. I mean, busy. Just got back from DC, shot some podcasts over there and just working like you, hustling. I see you hustling. I see you on social media doing your thing and we're excited to have you on. So let's just get started here. Your early life. I saw a post most recently. It was like your last two posts. Fantastic post, fantastic write-up. Tell us about your life. I know you have your own business. I know you're an entrepreneur. I know you're a CEO. Tell us about your early life.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that because a lot of people, they see where I'm at now, but they don't see like behind the scenes what it took to kind of get here and the hardship that I've gone through for most of my life, actually. So I grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and life wasn't always easy. It was more so difficult growing up for the most part. I was raised by women. There was no, father figure in the picture. And from a very, very young age, my mom actually became addicted to drugs. So it got so bad to the point of, everything that comes along with drugs. So abusive relationships, mentally, physically, emotionally, homelessness from a very young age. And eventually it got to the point where my mom quite literally abandoned me as a young child. And my grandmother had to take custody, I believe when I was about 11 or 12 years old. But my grandmother, she also suffered from severe depression. So it was not easy to live in that environment either. And she didn't have money. She was on disability. So she didn't have, funds to take care of me properly as a child, as a growing child. So eventually she sent me to a boarding school for, needy families. It's called Milton Hershey School. So if you've ever looked on the back of your Hershey's chocolate bar, you'll see the little emblem there. Wow. So I went to, for 5 years of my life, I, went to Milton Hershey School. And, school was always my safe haven. That was one thing I can say is in the midst of all of the hardship, from a young age, school was always where everything was okay. Mm-hmm. So, being able to get out of my environment and go live at school, full time, I was really able to thrive at Milton Hershey School. So that really, really helped me, I would say, get out of the crazy and toxic environment that I was in.
Wow. So, and this is why this show is important, because folks like you and a lot of us have a story of struggle, but there's a young lady and there's a young man right now that are going through the exact same thing that you're going through, right? So no father in the picture, mother who, essentially gives to the grandmother is not capable. That within itself, the trauma, and of course, you lived it, but there's somebody right now that's going through that trauma right now. And if you're watching this show, look at this young lady right here. I'm telling you, you can make it happen. Hashtag Section 8 to CEO. I'm telling you, you are living proof. And that's why I love this show and episode and just podcasts and all the episodes we've done. You know, everybody has a powerful story. And so I love when I hear these stories, because it's the comeback. You know, you as a young person going through all the hard things that you went through, you didn't even know that you had to make a comeback, right? Because you essentially you are, you're given these negative circumstances, and you already dealt a bad deck of cards. And now you got to almost make a comeback when you're supposed to just be a young person living your life and not worry about half of the things that adults have to worry about. So I commend you on that. So you mentioned in this post about homelessness. Tell us about that. Tell us about, being a young person and going through that struggle. Yeah, well,
I read a quote once, and it said, the average person who's homeless once or if you're homeless once, you're likely to be homeless like 7 times throughout your whole lifetime.
Wow.
So, I mean, I would say if I had to count it, probably about 7. At least I would hope that, I would never have to face that again. But, I was homeless not only as a young child because of the circumstances that, my mother, of her addiction, you're using all of your money to, to pay for the drug addiction. So, of course, homelessness is bound to happen. So I went through several periods of homelessness, in my young life. But then, as I was becoming a young adult, I found myself pregnant and in high school. And that was very, very hard for me to deal with, because at school I was a good girl, so it was really hard to be able to tell everyone at the boarding school I was at that, I was going to be a teen parent, a teen mom. So after I, graduated from school, on my 18th birthday, I was still actually pregnant with my daughter, and my grandmother, I was supposed to be going off to college with a full tuition scholarship. I was supposed to be going to Temple University. I already had my dorm room picked out, my roommate, and obviously, due to my pregnancy, that all, went down the drain. Wow. So my grandmother, who was preparing for me to go off to school, college for 4 years. And then, after college, typically, people will move on and, find roommates and move out of their parents' home, or their grandparents' home in my case. Now my grandmother was also facing a situation that she wasn't prepared for as well. So on my 18th birthday, I think the whole situation really overwhelmed her, because no one expected me to be pregnant at 17, 18 years old. Yeah. She actually kicked me out on my birthday, and I found myself homeless now as an adult. And it was very, very tough to navigate life at 18 years old. Wow. But I think ultimately, what kept me going is from a young age, I always knew that I was different. Despite the mistakes that I, made as a young adult and becoming pregnant, I always knew that I did not want to grow up in the, or I didn't want to live my adult life in the same circumstances that I, was in my childhood. Now bringing a child into this world, I knew for sure I didn't want to bring her into that and continue that cycle of homelessness, again and again. Yeah. So I always knew that I was going to make it out and make a way and find a way. I didn't know how, but I always knew that I was going to overcome my circumstances.
Powerful.
Yeah. And I don't know how to explain it. It's just a knowing. It's a feeling that you get inside that you know that you're going to overcome. Yeah.
And again, and no knock on anybody else, right? So in growing up in the inner city, humble environments, poverty, homelessness, uncertainty, right? As you get older, it's almost like, I got this. I've been through hard times before, and you've overcome, and you shouldn't be going through that as a young person. You should just be focusing on your education, right? Focusing on your young life, focusing on prom, focusing on going to the dances, focusing on finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend, going to the movies, going to parties, right? But growing up in the inner city, where you grow up in poverty, like, you almost get like this thick skin, and it actually helps you. It's tough and it sucks, because you don't want to go through that. Nobody wants to go through that. But as you get older, you realize, I'm going to go through hard times, but I've been through hard times before. So again, And this is why we do the show, because somebody needs to hear your story because they're going through that right now. And I don't know if you've gone to high schools to speak. I don't know if you've gone anywhere to speak to tell your story, but if you haven't, man, by all means, your story is powerful. You will touch lives, and I don't have to tell you're genuine. So you're going to tell your story, and it's going to come off genuine because it's real, right? And so, if I were you, I would try to get in front of those kids if you have time. I know you're busy, so, but by all means, how did you overcome the struggle of now you move into fast forward, you have this daughter, you're trying to beat homelessness. So where does the shift come in?
Yeah, that's a good question, because again, I always knew. So it started with the feeling of knowing like I will make it off the system, because when eventually I did go through homeless shelters, and then I went through a transitional program where I got a Section 8 voucher. And for people who don't know what Section 8 is, it's HUD. It's where you have your rent prorated based on your income. So if your income is zero, your rent is zero. So you have that security blanket of knowing that you won't be homeless again, because Section 8, kind of covers you. But I knew I didn't want to be on the system. I wanted to use it as a step up, or something to just help me out for the time being, but I knew I didn't want to remain there. So it started with the feeling, but then the biggest hurdle was how do I get off the system? Because even when I was working a full-time job at a university, I still was not making enough money to actually get off of Section 8 housing. I was still living, paycheck to paycheck with no disposable income. So, I started to realize, wow, I'm a really good employee. I'm a really great employee. Imagine if I could work for myself and really go this hard for my own business. And that's where Advancity Financial Solutions comes in. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've skipped in between this, but
but that's fantastic. No, because again, because you're in that moment of like excitement, like, man, we're you're finally getting to a moment. Well, maybe not just finally, but you're getting to the moment where it's like, man, this is where it's at. So
yeah.
Hashtag Section 8 to CEO. I know you mentioned it. I know you talked about Section 8. What does that hashtag mean to you?
I love that hashtag. Section 8 to
CEO.
I do
too. You got my eye with that one, man. I was
it means so much to me, because I feel it sends a very clear message to people who may be on Section 8 right now. It sends a very clear message that it is very possible to go from Section 8 to CEO. And it doesn't mean that you have to become a business owner, but you can get off of the system. I know it seems very hard to when you're on it, but it is possible. Yeah.
And again, no knocking on Section 8. Listen, people need help. That's the reality. And you, in my opinion, you're the epitome of what that system is meant for, to help folks build themselves back up or get themselves to a level to either become a CEO, to get a degree, to get a job, to learn a trade, and to help them through that process because they were dealt maybe a bad deck of cards, or something traumatic happened, or, life just hit them so hard. So no knocking on Section 8, but I love the hashtag. We get to the point now where we start talking about CEO, chief executive. You mentioned your company, Advancity Financial Solutions. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I found these influencers online, and they were talking about like need-based businesses. And see, I actually at first had a different company, and I completely had other services that I offered. But I found that, it's kind of hard when you're in a like want-based industry. It's something that people, could use, but they don't need. So when I found these influencers online, and they were talking about, tax preparation, and the fact that there's hundreds of millions of Americans who every year need their taxes done. And this is a business model that just makes sense. So that is the moment where it clicked for me, and I'm like, this is my how. This is how, I'm going to be able to make this happen. So I decided to, go through tax school, 100 hours of tax school. And this was all, very last minute. I think I started tax school in like December, and by February I was already preparing taxes. So I'm a go-getter. I definitely work very, very hard, and quickly. And yeah, and so now I have a virtual tax preparation office where I prepare taxes for people around the nation, not just in my city, but around the nation, because it's all virtual. It's all virtual based, and I can service people from the comfort of their own home.
Fantastic. That within itself is different. So I'm telling you right now, man, this is what happened. And I don't know if it's COVID-19 that did that, or just, obviously your ambition, your drive and all that, but I never heard of that virtual tax preparation.
And, yeah, and it wasn't, funny thing is my business model was already set up like that before COVID-19, but it just so happened that COVID-19 happened. This is my COVID-19 story. I know you're mentioning that before, but my COVID-19 story was actually a good one. Yeah. I actually thrived during that time as far as Advancity Financial Solutions, because there were people who, maybe are a part of like the older generation, or people who would rather have direct face-to-face services, but they were kind of forced to go virtual. Mm-hmm. And tax offices, across the nation were shutting down. So mm-hmm. even people who wouldn't normally be in my, target audience, my clientele, they came to me because they had no choice. But the thing is, they loved it. They ended up really, really liking the virtual business model. Even people who are like, I don't know how to work technology, we help them get through it.
Yeah. And again, I will say it is easier, and listen up, folks, it is easier for you to be sitting in your house, right? And everybody knows this. So I'm just preaching to the choir. It's easier to be sitting in your house on your kitchen, at your kitchen table, getting on your laptop and speaking to whoever's preparing your taxes, rather than getting in your car, going to the tax place. And no knock on that, because I have family who have done taxes and they're doing great. And if you have the ability to go over there, but how easy it is to be at your table, or being in your office, or being in your bed, sitting down with your laptop and talking to you, saying, hey, this is what it is. And then you go working them through the process. So fantastic idea. So what you do is it just taxes? Is it financial advice or anything like that?
I do business consultations as well. I help people with their credit. I have a do-it-yourself credit repair guide for people who are struggling in that area. And my newest addition to the services that I offer, which I was going to ask
you that. I know what it is, but go ahead.
I'm smiling ear to ear because this is like really my passion piece right here. What I put together, because I knew that tax preparation is, it can be such a, boring industry to some people. But for me, I always knew I wanted to like kick it up a notch and be able to offer people, so much more value just based off of my background and my story and what I come from. So I just started Advancity Tax Institute, where I am giving people the blueprint for how to start and operate their very own virtual tax office.
Wonderful.
So this is something that I put my heart into, because again, I've told you earlier, the biggest issue for me with coming off of the system was, how do I do it? I always knew I could do it and I would do it, but I didn't know how. And to be able to give people their how, it's something that is amazing for me.
Yeah. And I noticed that when people go through those folks that go through hard times, or people that go through hard times, once, I'm not saying we make it, because I'm always in the mindset where I haven't made it yet. You know what I mean? I'm always in a mindset where I have to keep trucking. I got to keep moving. I got to keep thinking. I got to keep doing those things. But once you get to a point where you see some movement and you see a little bit of success or a little bit of movement, you're almost like, man, I got to bring some people with me. Right. I got to help those people that I see a little bit of me in them. And so I noticed that. It's mostly the people that have very powerful stories and that struggled a lot and now want to help and give back. And so I commend you on that. Wonderful idea to do an institute. And then is this going to be virtual, or is it going to be in person? Are you going to start doing some stuff in person, or is it virtual?
Yes, it is all virtual. So I'm teaching these students how to start their own virtual tax office. So all of the education is in a virtual setting. They get their own login and password so they can access their classes, 24/7 whenever they have time. A lot of my students are working full time. They're mothers, they're single mothers. I do have a few men actually enrolled in my class too. And so they don't have a lot of time in their day to be able to fit this in. So I didn't want to set it up in a way where they had to be somewhere at a specific time. I wanted everybody to be able to have the freedom to access class whenever they can. And for some of my students, it's at 10 o'clock at night, when their kids go to sleep. That's great.
That's great. Again, and this is the thing, like we talked about it earlier. COVID-19 did a lot of damage. Let's be real. It did a lot of damage when it came to a lot of businesses and family and folks and people passing away and things like that in our government and things like that, right? But there is some light to it. We learned how to adapt, and now this virtual aspect has really changed the game. Now, for education, for entrepreneurs, for podcasters. I mean, it's just you have to look at some of the positive that came out of this, and we had to get more creative. Just like you're getting creative. And so again, I commend you on that. The reason that, and we talked about it earlier in the pre-show, we started Socially Connected 360 because of that reason. We were heavily involved in the community and we lost all of that, just like many folks lost a lot of stuff during COVID. And now we're here and we're on show 20 with you. So it's great. It's great to hear your story. So this is a question that I ask all of my guests. And I think it's a very important question because, there's somebody right now, like we talked about earlier in the show, that's going to listen to this and it's going through some difficult times. One piece of advice or a piece of advice that you would give a 19-year-old Chelsea Cheyenne.
Oh, 19. Okay. So I would say, you can't get through it unless you go through it. So you have to go through it to get through it.
Man.
And I think that, and I saw this a lot with, growing up, like just looking at my grandmother, for example, she had a lot of hardships in her life, but she chose to kind of curl up in a fetal position. I think naturally, when life happens, all of us want to just crawl up in a ball and cry and remain depressed. And, with anxiety and stress. But that only, that forces you to stay where you're at. You never really actually get through the circumstance. So I've learned that I've got to keep trudging along because eventually I will get through it, but I have to go through it. I can't stay stuck there.
Yes, man. I talked about this and it's weird. And folks, we didn't talk about this. Okay, I just made a video post on my TikTok. And I'm a fan of TikTok. I don't care what anybody says. I know I'm 41 years old. I don't care. If you got my TikTok, follow my TikTok because you're going to get motivated. But I just talked about this on my TikTok. I just made a video talking about, you ever feel like you're going 100 miles an hour and you're not moving? Or you ever feel like you're going through something and you're stuck and you're just there? Well, that's the moment where, or if you're trying to be successful in something, that's the moment where you gotta, like you said, you gotta truck through it, man. You gotta truck through it. Because those people that become successful, like you and other folks and a lot of successful people, is that when they get to that moment, they don't get in that fetal position. That fetal position is nowhere to be found. It is like you get up and you got to move and you got to make moves and you got to do it right away. So again, that's why I asked this question, because there's a 19-year-old right now, Chelsea Cheyenne, similar to you, that needed to hear that. You got to truck through it. Just like she said, you got to get through it. All right. So quick podcast. Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. One more question. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to, your institute, or they need their taxes done? Where could they find you?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm all over Facebook. Facebook is like where I'm at. So whether you follow me personally, Chelsea Cheyenne, or my business page, Advancity Financial Solutions. Right now, my website's being updated. So eventually, you'll be able to access advancityfinancialsolutions.com. But on my page, you will find all of my links to be able to book an appointment, whether it's a credit consultation, a business consultation, or if you want to enroll in Advancity Tax Institute. We are still accepting students.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we'll have all the links. And we're going to share, obviously everybody knows we share a lot. We're going to share away, and all the links will be there. Again, I see folks like you, you inspire folks like us, and we're going to continue to truck forward. Like we said, thank you so much for being on our podcast. It is always an honor. I want to say one last thing. Our show is sponsored by Miska Vodka, Premium Vodka. It is a wonderful, wonderful vodka, local distillery, by the way. So we're thankful for them, sponsoring our show today. And just thank you so much for being on the show. It's an honor to have you on my show.
Thank you. I really, really am honored to be here. You have no idea. I was so excited to hop on your podcast and join you this evening.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, folks, there you have it. Chelsea Cheyene, hashtag Section 8 to CEO, Advancity Financial Solutions. Find her. She's ready to rock with you, and we're ready to go. Thank you so much.